Okay, so when I say the word genie, what do you picture? Probably a big, friendly blue guy popping out of a lamp, right? Ready to grant three wishes. But the original being, the Jinn, well, that was something else entirely. Something way older and honestly a lot scarier. So today, we're going to trace that wild journey. How on earth did we get from a terrifying, free-roaming desert spirit of ancient myth to a magical servant stuck in a little lamp? That's the big question, and that's the mystery we're going to unravel right now. All right, to really get this, we've got to go back, way back. Act 1, the original, formidable Jinn. And believe me, at this point in the story, there are no magical lamps anywhere in sight. I mean, just look at the difference. It's night and day. You've got the Jinn, a totally independent, often dangerous spirit that you'd pray you never run into, and then you've got the Genie, a magical servant, literally bound to your every command. They couldn't be more different. And let me tell you, early folklore painted a pretty specific picture of the Jinn. These weren't just some vague, spooky ghosts. Oh no, they were powerful beings, tied to wild places like deserts. People genuinely believed they could make you sick, possess you, or even shapeshift into things like snakes. They were seen as this raw, untamable force of nature. So what happened? How do you tame an untamable force of nature? Well, the catalyst for this huge change wasn't one person or one single event. It was a massive, world-changing collection of stories. Which brings us to Act 2, A Bridge of Tales. The absolute game changer was a book called 1001 Nights, which you probably know as The Arabian Nights. This collection was like a cultural superhighway. It took the idea of the Jinn from these regional beliefs and, boom, introduced it to the entire world. This is where the real transformation kicks off. And what made these stories so powerful was that they were a total melting pot. You have to understand, this wasn't just one culture's stories. It was a blend of Arabic, Persian, Indian, Turkish, Chinese, and even Greek traditions all mixed together. And that fusion created a much more varied, more complex idea of what a Jinn could be. Now, somewhere in this incredible mix of stories, we hit the crucial turning point. This is the moment where the whole concept of the Jinn gets flipped on its head, sending it down a path it could never come back from. Welcome to Act 3, Bound by Magic. This was the radical new idea that 1001 Nights put out into the world, that these incredibly powerful beings could be controlled. Think about that. For the first time in popular stories, Jinn weren't just wild spirits anymore. A human could actually bind them, command them, and force them to be a servant. The entire power dynamic was completely reversed. And this created a kind of formula, a recipe for the modern Genie story. It's simple, really. Step 1, you start with a powerful, untamed spirit. Step 2, you introduce a magical object, a lamp, a ring, you name it, that acts as its prison or contract. And step 3, boom, that wild spirit is now a servant with a human as its new master. That simple process became the blueprint for everything that followed. So, you've managed to bind this all-powerful spirit to your will. What's its main job now? Well, this is where their most famous feature comes into play. Act 4, the power of a wish. And, of course, there's one story that completely cemented this idea in everyone's minds: Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp. This is where the Jinn's job description officially changes. They're not just servants anymore. Their main function is now granting wishes. Their magic is what drives the whole story forward for the hero. You can really see the massive narrative shift right here. Before these stories, the Jinn's main purpose in folklore was to be scary, right? To be the monster in the dark. But afterwards, their role completely flips to wish fulfillment. They literally went from being the source of the problem to being the magical solution. This change was so profound, so complete, that it even changed the words people used, especially as the concept traveled from the Middle East to the West. And that brings us to Act 5, from Jinn to Genie. The word genie itself is like a little fossil of this whole transformation. It comes directly from the Arabic word jinn. But as the stories got translated and adapted for Western audiences, the name changed to reflect a much simpler idea. The complex, morally gray Jinn was sort of reborn as the more straightforward, magical genie. So, let's just quickly recap the whole journey. It starts in ancient folklore with a powerful, fearsome spirit. Then, 1001 Nights comes along, kind of captures that spirit in its pages and gives it a brand new purpose.
And finally, Western adaptations take that idea, smooth off the rough edges, and turn the mighty Jinn into the friendly genie we all think of today.
Which brings us to the end of our story, the final pop culture version of this being, a character that is now known and honestly loved all over the world. Act 6, the genie we know. You can really think of 1001 Nights as this incredible literary furnace. It took the raw, dark, dangerous ore of the ancient Jinn myths and forged it into something totally new, the bright, shiny, magical wish granter that has fascinated us ever since. And so, this is what we're left with today. The modern genie. Job title? Magical wish granter. Personality? Usually benevolent, but maybe with a little bit of that old trickster spirit still hanging around. And their main purpose, above all else, is to serve human desires. That's the final product, born from ancient fears and shaped by centuries of storytelling. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. In this incredible transformation from Jinn to Genie, we obviously gain a fantastic, entertaining character. But what might get lost along the way? What happens when a complex, ancient myth gets simplified into a fun story for the whole world? It's definitely something to chew on.